Okay. Okay, this place is rigged.
What do you mean it's rigged? What is that?
It means I don't type a code into the central terminal and then kaboom. That alarm, that means that we got 3 minutes before it gets awful warm in here.
That's bullshit.
I look like I'm lying to you. You really want to take that risk?
What's the password?
Only takes a retinal scan. Oh, you really want to die together?
Come on!
Hey, welcome to Panels to Pixels. This is episode 3. We're continuing our episode talks about the Punisher Netflix series. We're doing episode 3, which is titled Kandahar. And I'm going to leave it and announce our guest host, Steve Brown. Steve is actually going to explain the episode and what happened in some sort of small detail. And then we'll actually get into our top 5 after that. Steve, take it away.
Well, all right. Well, thank you, Mark. So Kandahar starts out with almost right where the last episode left off. With Frank has Micro, and he's going to torture him to get information. He thinks Micro is trying to show people that he's alive, and it's almost partially a bottle episode, really, between Frank and Micro. And then flashbacks to Frank when he's at, I'm assuming, Kandahar, because that's the name of the episode, as we find out the operation that Frank was involved in called Operation Cerberus, which was a kind of a guerrilla-type warfare, black ops joint mission that he was doing with the CIA and the Marines. And we also have another storyline going on with the woman who's searching for Frank and her partner, and they are trying to figure out what happened with C. Thomas Howell's character in the last from the last episode as well. So that's kind of where we're at. We go between those kind of 3 storylines, unless I'm forgetting something. Oh, we do get the flashback of Micro telling us how he became on the run as well in this episode. So a lot of backstory filled in with this episode is what we got.
Yeah, I agree. This actually showed a lot of things that we did not know about Frank when he was in the military and all those secret missions that was going on during the war and his turmoil within it and dealing with his friend Bill, which was we find out within the episode itself, which I think is really interesting because I have a funny feeling it gets more creative later on down the road in future episodes.
Yeah, there's something with that guy. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's interesting that we kind of are getting 2 sides of him in that we're seeing that I didn't mention in the synopsis, but he's benefactoring the veterans talk group that the other character is kind of leading. So.
Yeah, it's the one that Frank confides in and actually knows who he is. And, yeah, he actually goes to the cemetery and talks to that friend, and they're, like, toasting off to Frank. And it's like the other guy knows who, Frank's alive.
He knows that Frank's alive, but yet they're still, they're having that moment. So I forgot about that scene. Yeah, that's a good scene.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think it shows a lot within guys that go through that in the military that actually deal with that stress and dealing with that turmoil, and you actually see where Frank came from. It's like you could see the family side of him, his wife getting him the Springsteen tickets and sending that to him in the mail, and then the next night, he's got to assassinate this guy. And sorry if they're spoilers, but if you haven't watched the show, you wouldn't be listening to this already. But
yeah, that scene was particularly. I didn't put it in my top 5 or in my notes, but now that you remind me of it. That's a particularly poignant scene. I was never in combat, but I was deployed at a deployed location, a forward location. I've been in tents like that where you're literally side by side with the guy next to you, and you're getting your letters from home, you're getting cards from people, and when you get that card, like I got a card saying, hey, I don't think we should see each other anymore.
Ugh.
That's a tough card to get when you're thousands of miles from home.
Definitely.
So everybody knows what's going on with everybody else in those tents, from who got drunk the night before, or who threw up, or who's banging a girl from another tent. You get it all. So that I had forgotten about that until you brought that up. That scene is where he's playing the guitar and
Exactly. The higher ups are coming up to him and saying, "Hey, we have something for you," and this and that. And he's playing his guitar, and which kind of segues back to, it always recalls back to that very beginning, or even if you look at the previews before the show came out, with him and his son playing the guitar, and then that whole Metallica 1
Exactly.
intro, which is amazing. But yeah, it's like, how could you get a Dear John letter while you're overseas fighting? This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's like, who in their right mind? It's like, hold on. I don't like you. No, don't do that to a guy. That's just wrong.
It is rough. I will say that. So, but
guy or girl, sorry.
It's an interesting. I remember, and this is not really applied to the show, but really just to military life in general. It's like a microcosm of your regular life. I remember having a conversation with one of the guys I was deployed with, and we'd only known each other for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and he looked at me and he said, "Steve, I've talked more to you than I've talked to anybody back at home. I have a deeper friendship with you guys here than I have with anybody that I have back at home." And I said, "That's because we're in this microcosm where we're together literally 24 hours a day. We're eating meals together. Every meal we eat is together. Everything we do is together. We don't do anything by ourselves, except for maybe go to the bathroom and shower. And there's times when you've got multiple guys in there at the same time doing that." So
it's like, I know your body better than I know mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of attitude. I know.
There's some times like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Boy Scouts, and you wind up dealing with that too. And not saying that I was there constantly, but geez, it's just like, oh, it's like, hold on, it's like, oh wait, you got that wart down there. It's like, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's one of those weird things, but only certain people understand. And usually it's the military, or if you're stuck confined with somebody for so long. Yes. Oh my God, it's just like, I felt bad. It's like you see Frank going through all these things, and I just it's like I feel bad for anybody. It's like my nephew's in the Air Force, and it's like, I don't want him to go to war.
Yeah. No, I understand. I when I joined, it was right before Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Yeah.
So literally it kicked off, I think, 6 months after I joined the Air Force.
Which
and
year
so,
was that?
89 was when I joined, and I think Desert Shield, Desert Storm was kind of ramping up 90, 91 time frame. I didn't go to the desert then, but I was stationed at a base in Texas, and we were launching the B-52s to go over there.
Wow.
I was involved in marshaling those planes and getting them loaded and stuff. And then after 9/11, of course, I went overseas as well, and I went to Korea a couple times, and it's just it's a life that it's not for everybody. I'm not one of these vets and who says, oh, we have to have a mandatory draft. It's not a life that's for everybody. If you can handle it. I like to use that quote from the first Men in Black movie where Will Smith says, "Is it worth it?" And Tommy Lee Jones says, "Oh yeah, if you can handle it." And that's what I tell people whenever I have young people ask me if they should join the military. I said, they say, "Is it worth it?" And I go, "Yeah, if you can handle it."
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it is.
and that's
Yeah, my father actually swayed me against going in. In high school, I dealt with learning disabilities and stuff like that, and they sent me away to an old boys Catholic high school, which is far worse than going to a public high school, because it's a smaller microcosm, as you said, and people kind of pinpoint, and you get the people who have rich kids that send, the parents of rich kids, and they send their kids there. And then you got my parents who struggle on we're middle class, and
Right.
they're paying for everything just because they want a better education for me, trying to get me through this. And it just goes right into you. And then it's just so I understand the whole microcosm thing, because it does in social structures in different areas. But the thing is that, oh man.
I just love seeing those scenes too, of those guys interacting together. I love seeing the scene. I think it's really well acted. Even from the guy there's a guy in the group, that real burly, tough, over the top, conservative. I'm conservative. I'm right wing. I consider myself. I'm not that far. I am a member of the NRA. Don't throw stones at me, please.
No, I'm part of it too, so it's okay.
But I like those interactions, seeing those guys talking to each other and hearing those stories, and then when they show those flashes of that stuff, it reminds me. Like I said, even though I wasn't in combat, it reminds me of the things that I've been involved with and done. So I love that about this show, is that it's putting that light. You're seeing both sides, I think, of that sort of position, and that when we get to top 5, that's going to go into one of my
it's more realism. It's a realistic view, and what I was trying to say was them putting me into that private boys' high school. It's I asked my father, it's once I got out, it's a lot of my friends were going into the Marines, and my father was a Marine. And I said, well, should I go into the Marines? He was like, no. He goes, I don't think it's meant for you. I'm like, okay. And the thing was, I was a Boy Scout too, and it's I made Eagle Scout.
Right.
And it's I thought, okay, it's this is a little different. It's you be doing something right for the country and this and that. No, it's not for you. So a lot of my friends went out there, like you were talking about Desert Storm. A few of my friends had gotten stationed out there, and that from high school, and they came back, and they went through some tough times, and I felt bad. It's like my father even said, he goes, see? I was like, yeah, I know. But the thing was, but my father never served in war itself. He was a Marine, but he went to Parris Island and did all that stuff, and he served his time, but he never did any battle or anything like that. But the thing was that he knew that it was a tough, and it's based upon your personality. So some people have that and some people don't, and I think he knew at a young age, you're not meant for that, especially considering I do support people that want to have guns. I'm not the type of, and I have my father was a police officer for the New York City Police Department. Right. And for emergency services. So I took possession of my father's guns after he passed away. My brother is a retired New York City police officer as well. And my brother was like, you should take them. Everybody kept telling me you should take them. Now, mind you, I'm the worst person because I don't like guns. But do I respect them? Yes. Do I know how to use one? Yes. But I was just like, wow. But the thing is that I do support a person's right to use and to bear arms in this country. Now, mind you, for those crazy people that are out there, no, they shouldn't be allowed to have a gun.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I don't want to get kind of political about this, but it's there are certain laws that should be afflicted to it. Yeah. I'm glad about background checks. That's the one thing that the Democrats did that I love, is that the intense background checks. So it does make sense. Yeah. But the fact of trying to take the guns away, no.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a country. Yeah. I don't want to get. Again, I'm with you. I don't want to get political because I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum. In fact, I have a license and I carry every day. If I'm outside of my apartment, if I'm unless I'm going back to the base or something like that. Yeah. I've got one on me. So, and that's just. But that's all I'm going to say about that. So, yeah, where do we go from here?
Whatever you want. We could start our top 5 if you want.
I would love that because I really wanted to, the main thing I wanted to say is I love that theme song. Like I literally, when I start the episode, I watched the entire opening credits of each of these 3 episodes that I've watched. And I love that bluesy guitar theme song that they have.
Oh, definitely. I love it. All right, Steve, your top 5?
Okay, so, and these are not in any particular order. I just kind of was jotting them down, but probably the biggest one is that I love that theme song. That very beginning of the episode, I watched the whole thing through. I won't fast forward through it. I love that guitar solo, bluesy. I don't know what song it is, or if it's a particular song, or they just wrote it for this show. But I love that intro, and the 3 episodes I've watched, even the multiple times that I watched this episode, I listened to the whole entire theme song.
Yeah, it's honestly, hopefully they'll come out with a soundtrack.
I would love that. I would buy it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, because even the middle song, towards the end when you see him in battle, you remember that?
Absolutely, absolutely. When he's reaping, when he's
Yeah.
when the commander says, "You sow what you reap," and he says, "I'm going to reap a little bit of my own."
Yep. And then you feel it through that whole scene.
Yeah.
And and if you listen to the words, it kind of depicts what he's actually going through.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was very, very poignant, and I don't remember the exact lyrics, but I didn't actually pay attention to the lyrics, I think, until like the 3rd time through, and I went, oh wow, these lyrics, I need to go back and I may even go back and watch that again just to focus on that particular scene. But yeah, the music of this show is probably the first one that I'd say.
Yeah, it's I always said it before, and originally with the original podcast idea I had was to be about music, but because it's really my strength more than anything. But yeah, a lot of people are like, music does combine with the visual, and you kind of get both. So my feeling is like, that intro is the feeling of how he's feeling deep down. It's what I think is the intro music, is how
Nice.
Frank's feeling deep down. But that ending scene, the way it was interweaved, that was amazing.
Oh yeah,
So that was your number 5?
that was yeah. Like I said, that would be my number 5. I have no particular order on these really.
So basically, my number 5 would be the whole story itself. Looking at the flashbacks and present day, what Frank went through and what Micro went through too. You see a bit of Micro's past, you see a bit of Frank's past, and then them coming together and kind of just formulating something. And they are both the same and different at the same time, if you look at it. Because
Absolutely.
both of them are dead men, according to everybody else. And the only difference is Micro has a family. He chooses not to be around them because it could cause them pain. So that was my number 5. It was kind of a rounding out, kind of fast, too, considering it's the 3rd episode. But, it's honestly, it was done in a very good format. But, that was my feeling about number 5. It's that whole episode in general.
Yeah, I thought it was edited really well, the way they put it together and the way they moved between those scenes and then brought us back to the present day as well was really good. The transitions between those, I thought, were really well done, at least in my opinion, and especially one of the ones that gets into one of mine that I'll talk about later was a transition that I really liked.
Yeah. So
my
number 4?
Yeah, my number 4, because what you just said kind of plays into my number 4, which was the fact that I like that Micro, he acknowledges that Frank has lost more than he has, in that his family is still alive. And I don't know, we don't really know if he harbors any hope of maybe someday trying to go back, get his family back, or if there's been so much now that he can't go back. and but he acknowledges anyway that Frank has lost more than him, but he still considers them that kismet, that them the same, and his. It was interesting when we saw the flashback of him getting shot, in that C. Thomas Howell keeps saying, drop the weapon, and he clearly doesn't have anything in his hands. And there's cops standing around, and I guess most of the civilians had ran away at that point, but his wife is standing in the background, and unless she got pulled away by one of the cops before C. Thomas Howell shot, she witnessed C. Thomas Howell, like, cold-bloodedly shoot him into the water.
Exactly. Yeah. She was the cold witness that knew what was going on. And her life was still in danger even then. So
right.
Micro was just like, forget it. As soon as he was able to fake it, he did get shot.
Yeah.
But
that's another unclear kind of thing, because he says the cell phone saved his life, but he still had a scar from the bullet.
Yes.
Yeah. So did the bullet go? Did it slow down the bullet enough?
That's what I think.
That it still wounded him, but it slowed the bullet down enough to where it didn't do as much damage. Because like at the end, Frank's you can see blood on both the front and back of Frank's uniform.
Yes.
Yeah. From his wound, and you can see that was a through and through, and that the bullet didn't stay there. So it makes me wonder if Micro still has a bullet maybe in his shoulder or in that sternum area, kind of thing.
It's a possibility. We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. I like that. My number 3, if you want to go first, I'll do mine first if you want.
Go ahead. Yeah, by all means.
Or was that 4? That was 4.
That was 4. We were doing. Yeah, you'd be your number 4.
Okay, so that would be Frank's friend Bill. How he changed. If you look at him in the flashbacks from the wartime up until the time that he takes a position with Phoenix, that's what they call that company, I guess. It's a group, and he went from. Originally Frank was stationed to leave first, and then at the end of the mission, Bill winds up leaving because he put in his paperwork. I don't know if it was just before their mission or after, but he said that he was approved to go, and he was going to go back because he didn't want to be doing this anymore. I guess his tour of duty was done.
Yeah, he said it sounded to me like Frank was actually getting out. Mm-hmm. And he sounded like he said he asked for, because I believe the phrase he used was transferred back to Force Recon, which would be the Marines kind of special forces kind of thing. Like he wanted to be transferred back to that. So we don't know yet his backstory as far as how he gets from bearded Black Ops guy to suit and tie guy with this Phoenix Foundation.
Exactly.
We don't have that information yet.
Yeah, but he does change his tune a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, within the flashback to now, and it's a huge change in attitude. So it's somebody that Frank thought he knew, and is somebody completely that he doesn't know.
Well, and it almost seems like he doesn't acknowledge some of the things they did. Because he tells the black guy, he says, I got out before I had this trauma that the guys in his group are dealing with.
Exactly.
When the black guy invites him into the group, he says, well, I got out before I got anything. But we know that's not completely true because we watched him in that flashback with Frank. So we know he was involved in some of those Black Ops things.
He was involved. He just kind of like lies about it and feigns away from it because he doesn't want to be reminded of it. So maybe that's his PTSD. That
could be.
So, but that was my number 4. Okay. It was an interesting character that came up, and the fact that we see him at the very end standing over Frank's grave, and I think the guy you're talking about is Curtis.
Curtis, thank you. Yes, that's his name. I couldn't remember his name, the character name.
Yeah, that's Curtis, and that's the one that Frank confides in that does those group meetings for
Right,
all the vets.
And apparently he works in insurance, and he has a missing leg.
Yeah,
part of his leg is gone. So,
but he uses that to sell insurance.
Right, exactly. So did you want to go with your number 3?
No, you go with the number 3.
Okay. My number 3 was, and I might be misremembering this a little bit, but Frank's memory of his wife's death seems to change a little bit throughout the episode. You know, we get in the first couple episodes, we saw him dreaming about his wife waking him up. We saw dreaming about things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until this episode really that we get the slight little changes in that until the very last dream where we see that the killer takes the mask off and it's Frank. And he's, so obviously he blames himself for his wife's death. I really like that. I thought John Bernthal really sold that really well and acted. I guess part of my number 3 with that is John Bernthal's portrayal of the character. You know, he's brought a lot of depth. Thank you. That's the word I was searching for, into this character that I don't think we've seen before. I don't think we even saw really in the comic book Punisher. I think you talked about that a little bit with Avellino, that in the comic book Punisher, he's
more of a hitman.
Yeah, and he's more stoic about it.
Yes.
So
that Negan-esque kind of attitude of jokey and
exactly
sarcasm, but definitely. It's showing the human in him, and
exactly.
That's what I like, is that they actually humanize the character. He's not a superhero. Actually, he has no powers. Come on,
right?
It's a comic book movie about a vigilante, honestly.
Exactly.
And he's not a vigilante that does things for bad or to do things for major intent. He's just doing things for the good of people. Like, take a look at the first episode when he saved that kid.
Exactly.
He was trying to save that kid from that whole situation. So he's trying to find the good in things and do it with what he knows how to do.
Right. Exactly.
Obviously. But
he's Batman without the bankroll. He's
exactly.
Batman without the bankroll and the morals
and the bad attitude.
And the bad attitude. Sure.
Come on. It's like I always call it as the anti-hero.
Yeah.
And that would be similar to like Deadpool and all those different comic book characters that are out there.
A little bit.
So
there was a book series in the 60s, and it kind of went on into the 70s and 80s, I think, by a writer named Don Pendleton, where he had a character with very similar kind of backstory, where he was like a special forces guy, and he came back home and the mob had killed his family, and so he went on this war against the mafia. And I remember reading a quote from that author years ago where he said if he had the same training that this guy had and he had the same circumstances, he could see himself doing the same thing. And that's really what's going on here with Frank, is Frank is taking what he's been trained to do, which is kill people, and carry that out. And he's doing what he was trained to do, and he has a code. I don't know exactly what the code is sometimes, but
that's the whole thing. It's like we don't know. It's somebody who wants to do something better for other people and the right thing, and then to prove the right thing for himself too. Also without being noticed.
Right. Exactly.
Hence why Karen was taken in to help him out. Which, to me, honestly, that's pretty cool that they bring that character in from Daredevil. So, that whole Karen Page thing.
Okay. Is that later on? Did I miss something?
What? She was brought in second episode.
Second episode. Okay. I didn't rewatch the first and second episode. I just rewatched that third episode. So all I got was the bottle, the bottle stuff. So I'll have to go back and rewatch those first couple episodes and see where we're at on that. So.
Yeah,
I remember the Dawn.
He was trying to figure out who was trying to track him and follow him,
Okay.
which
Okay.
was Micro, and then she had to do some digging.
Okay. Okay.
and then-
Yeah. Now I'm tracking with you. Yeah. Now I got you. Okay. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch those first couple episodes again so I could get a context.
Yeah,
So-
a lot of these actors are great too, because the one who played Karen Page was actually in True Blood at one point.
Oh,
And
wow.
She was a lot younger, and she played the leads, one of the leads, the male leads. Conquests. He had to create a vampire, so she
Okay.
that was her, and she came a long way. I really, to me, this shows her depth in acting.
Okay.
She's actually very good. And then same thing with Bernthal itself. And who else can we get other than, and honestly, I have to point it out, we got Clancy Brown. Come on.
Wow. I am, he's a guy I've loved him in just about everything I've seen. He was the Kurgan
Yep.
in Highlander. He was he's been in so many different movies and done so many different types of characters
Yeah,
that
Starship
I
Troopers.
love.
I think of the character almost like in Starship Troopers, but the only difference is that he's still holding back from that character.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
He played pretty much like a colonel or a general or whatever in charge of all these guys, and it's like,
Yep.
oh wow, it's like, well,
Yeah.
he's kind of playing the same sort of role, but not really, in a little
Right.
different way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I love it. So what was your number 3?
Number 3 was Frank's interrogation of Micro. That was kind of intense.
Ooh.
Kind of almost similar to waterboarding at one point.
Mhm.
He's stripping him naked and forcing him and smacking aim telling him, hey, that's pain. You get used to pain, man. It's something
I
you
thought it was
feel.
I thought it was funny at the beginning of the episode when he opens up the can with his knife and then he wipes the knife off on Micro's shoulder. Okay. And then he starts eating out of the can with the knife. And the thing that Micro's going to mention is, you can get botulism that way.
Yeah.
You're tied naked to a chair. This guy has just wiped off his knife on your shoulder. Okay.
Could have been your butt.
Yeah. I don't think he cares about germs at this point.
Exactly. He doesn't realize who his audience is, and you're going to wind up with a knife in you.
Yeah, exactly. I took some of that at the beginning, though. Really, I almost took as I wondered as I watched the episode the first time. I wondered if Frank was kind of play acting with him. That Frank, recognized that he was like him, but he had to push the guy until he could. But then, of course, he keeps on torturing
Pushing.
him. And you realize that, oh no, he just really is torturing the guy.
Yeah, those are the tactics they actually teach out there, which is really sad.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, if you look at what he had to do during that, when they were interrogating that guy that he had to execute,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy kept saying, I'm innocent, and then they look at him and he goes, yeah, shoot him. And he shoots him, and that's the whole thing. It's just like, that's what they were taught. That's what they were trained. That's what they had to do in those ops.
Yeah.
But-
That whole thing was a little interesting. That was. I'm wondering if there's more to something there, because Micro's wife tells him. He says, I got this piece of information, which is this CD with this interrogation and this murder on it, and I've got this CD, and I need to know what to do with it. And she says to send it to his immediate supervisor, who is the C. Thomas Howell character.
Exactly.
But he doesn't send it to him. He sends it to someone else.
Yeah, but the thing is that he didn't realize that the C. Thomas Howell character was the one that authorized that.
Right. Okay. That's yeah. So that's where we're starting to the story is starting to come together.
Exactly.
To where we're starting to see, what he and Frank actually do have in common is that they have this shared kind of thing, even though
Knowledge.
Micro wasn't. Yeah, knowledge. Micro wasn't there in the room, but now he's seen the tape, and so now he has to be eliminated.
Exactly.
And his family is going to have to be eliminated. So it was an interesting thing there with the wife and with him saying that he wanted to do the right thing because we teach our children to do the right thing. And if I don't do the right thing now, what am I teaching them?
Exactly.
I really, again, that's really well acted and almost really well written. I'm not a parent, so I don't know exactly how that kind of conversation might go, but that was kind of a cool interaction between him and his wife. Not cool acting wise, not good, obviously,
Yeah.
but it was a well acted interaction between them of her saying, "You just want me to tell you to do it so that you can blame me when it blows up."
It was a very, very well-versed conversation on screen about something very intense like that. You know, it's like, where else you only experience those things in life, and
Right.
to actually have it portrayed on screen, something like that, it's like, all right, where are your morals, and what are you going to do? And,
Right.
Yeah, and how often do we really see that on TV?
Yeah.
Designated Survivor, maybe, and a few other shows that I'm
Yeah.
on, but with this is more of like more wartime and everything else that's going on around us that, you know, we really tried not to look at. But
Right.
you know, this is like staring you right in the face, and this is something that's going to be said that not many people do.
Exactly. And I really liked when he said the comment he made about the fact that this is why this kind of intelligence is why I do this job. Like all the intelligence that he had sifted through before it was just crap stuff that even he knew was lies and disinformation.
Exactly.
But now he suddenly had something land in his lap that's real.
He had a purpose in what he was doing finally.
Right.
Of all the things that he's been working up to, he finally found a purpose, and they're trying to shut him up is what it was.
Right.
And now it's like, no, I don't want to. And his wife's like, well, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you could either get us killed or yourself killed, and you know, so he had to put himself out there and make a decision, you know, and that's why he left his wife and made her believe that he was dead.
Exactly.
So, but
Okay.
So,
We
what
up
was
to
your number
mine.
two?
My number two. I loved the very end of the episode when Frank agrees to work with him and he says, "We're going to kill all of them," and Micro just kind of goes, "Yeah, I'm okay with that." I really just like that. It was a very matter of fact kind of answer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
You know, like you almost felt like Frank was wanting to get some pushback on it so that he could fight with the guy about it, but the guy was like, "Okay, go ahead and kill him." So I really like that. It made me chuckle. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
No,
I'm okay with that.
well, my number two is pretty much that special mission. We got to find out what happened, what was really in that video, and what happened.
Yeah.
And the fact that you saw Frank actually do the execution of that man. And then later on being told by the guy who obviously was part of like some sort of clergy that was in the military saying, "Why are you taking the bullet out?"
Yeah.
And all that. It was all to hide the situation because they knew they were doing something wrong. But
Yeah,
Frank was kind of like oblivious to it in some way, but he knew that that's how they do things and that's how they do it. And later on, that whole battle scene with the music and everything else, you know. But
Yeah.
that really was like deep cuts as far as you feeling the emotional intent with the music itself. That's why I love how some shows put interplay specific music with lyrics that kind of represent what's going on with the actual character itself.
Right. Yeah. I liked the line, and I backed it up and listened to it actually like 3 or 4 times because I was trying to figure out exactly what he was saying. When he gets up and he says, "I've got to get back for the boss." And he's talking about the Springsteen tickets.
Yep.
He says, "I got to get back for the boss." I thought at first he was meaning his wife, but then I went, wait a minute. No, he's talking about, "I got to get back for the concert."
Yeah.
And then he says, "And I got to get you back." And then he finds the Colonel and he says, "Colonel, I'm going to get you back." You know, that taking that idea of, I think that is really the moment where he became the Punisher, because that's the moment where he became the one man kind of killing crew.
Yeah.
and he just goes through, and we see him grabbing he's grabbing enemy combatants' weapons after he's killed them. He's killing people with weapons when they're empty. He's using that shotgun, and then that last guy that he's just punching and punching and punching, and that scene is very intense.
Well, the fact that he got shot himself too.
Yeah.
And that end scene, if you look at it, it's like that's when the music builds up, and then we fade to, back to the quarters, and there, you got the medic on him, and he goes, "Did you get him? Did you execute the plan?" And he's like, "What? What?" And he just flips out, and then he cold cocks him in the eye and does something to his eye, which we see later on eventually. But that
was a bad lick to his eye.
No, that was. I hope he popped it out or something.
Something. That whole thing was another one of those moments where you read the room, dude. You walk in and all these guys are injured, and obviously I'm assuming there's been at least a couple of deaths, and there's a lot of adrenaline going, and you're going to ask the most dumbest question of all, did you get him? That's read the room. So
yeah, I always take that as corporate BS. It's like, did you do it? I'm like, yeah. So I kind of think about it in my job. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm a grunt. Yeah, it's done.
Yeah. If the guy was actually there, he's dead. But now we're not sure if he was actually there even.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to be interesting to find out if they come back to it later on, is if the guy was ever even actually there. Because I think Frank was right when he said this is a trap. This is the way even Frank says it. He said, we're the American Taliban. If we had a group that was coming after us like this and wanted, basically that guy is what he should have said, they want to kill you, this is how I would do it. I would set up a trap saying that you're in this location.
Exactly.
And I think that was what he was trying to tell the guy is, hey, this is an obvious trap that you're
just basically throwing us out there to get killed, Yeah.
And that brings me to one of my notes, actually, because that was a quote that I wrote down where the guy makes a statement that made me laugh. Even when I was in the military, I heard these phrases uttered: hard-earned, thoroughly vetted intelligence. Doesn't exist. I'm sorry. There's nothing that's 100%. And when I heard that, I think I laughed out loud when I heard that line the first time. Hard-earned, thoroughly vetted intelligence. How do you do that? So I love that. That's. Are we to our number one?
Yeah, we are.
My number one is what I alluded to earlier, has to do with the editing of the episode. And what we have is the woman who's tracking Frank is talking to her partner, and her partner is talking to her about trust and how you earn trust. And then the scene seamlessly shifts to Frank waking up on the bed with the gun on his chest, which is exactly the only way that Micro could have gained his trust. If Frank had woken up strapped naked to a chair, he would have just broke loose and tried to kill Micro. But waking up on a bed with a gun is obvious that Micro has some trust in him and is trying to get his trust back. So I really like the way that was edited.
Yeah. Which actually brings me to my number one. Micro actually convincing Frank that he needs to be the man in the chair for Frank.
Yeah, I like that. You've got to have somebody. Every missile has to have a guidance system. Is that how he put it?
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of alludes to other comic book movies that are out there now. It's like you got Spider-Man: Homecoming, and you got Ned, who's Peter Parker's man in a chair, and at the very end he's swinging around, man in a chair.
Yeah.
So the thing is that it kind of shows that there's got to be a brains behind the brawn. Frank could get the physical going and done, and Micro could do it. He's the one that could come up with the plan and get everything working. Look how he was able to manipulate Frank with the constant siren that goes off every hour.
That was
And he has-
amazing. We don't know exactly how long. That was one of my notes actually. Was we don't know what the time period was that thing was,
exactly.
and every time he does it, he slides over there and he grabs that pencil.
Yep. And
And-
he uses that to type. And at first, Frank sees the gun underneath the chair or underneath the desk and grabs it. What is this? What is
Yeah.
this? You know.
I forgot. Yeah, it's almost like a magician's misdirection. I think is what that pistol was. He says, "Oh, I forgot it was there. I forgot it was there." But really, he probably did remember it was there. He used that to distract about the fact that he grabbed that pencil and uses that pencil and then puts it down. And every time he comes back to that same pencil, and it's almost like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing, that Frank let it go the first time, and which that was kind of in my note, was why did Frank let it go the first time? The guy was pecking at the keyboard anyway. Why did he need a pencil to do it? So but that's interesting though. I like that, and then finally he had to pick his moment to actually use that pencil.
Exactly. Yeah, that was really cool though. And in the very end though, it's like, you know, throughout the whole episode he was pretty much naked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just put my pants on? But yeah, next thing you know, it's like, yeah, at the very end, after he puts that pencil into Frank and it leaves, you know, he left the gun on Frank's chest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you said it before to me earlier. That made a point, is showing trust to Frank, and on top of that, he shows up in his robe. And
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's like I feel comfortable now.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was interesting that he and I caught it. I didn't catch it the third time, and I didn't really. I need to go back and maybe rewatch it again. He says something about the heroin was just to finance this place, and so it made me wonder if that's what that pencil was laced with, was what some sort of heroin that knocked Frank out. Unless I misheard that.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. Wow.
It sounded like he said something like that, to that effect. And I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the episode to see that, because that, like I said, I didn't catch it till the last watch through. But yeah, that thing with the pencil was an interesting.
Yeah, that was,
you know,
that
and
was
then
cool.
even he makes that comment about spooks, that he's a spook and he was able to overcome Frank. You need, like you were saying, you need the guy in the chair, because the guy in the chair can outthink you, you know, and this guy in this chair just outthought you is kind of what I think his implication there is that I was able to get past you. And
Okay, cool.
very nice. So what was next on the?
All right, so this is the time on Pixels, Panels to Pixels, that we're actually going to talk about comic book talk, comics in the news, any comic book shows, movies, anything that's happening in cinema for comic-related information. So the one thing that dropped today, and today being December 14th, Disney is finalizing the acquisition of Fox, and that includes the original Star Wars, which, if you think about it, Fox owned the original Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, Return of the Jedi, the original cuts. So they could release those at any given time. And then they also include X-Men and Fantastic Four, which is awesome, because I definitely want to see these characters in the new Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not saying that Fox did a bad job the last time at these. I really liked the Silver Surfer in the second version of, you know, the sequel to the original Fantastic Four movie that came out years ago. And then I'm not talking about the third one that came out a couple of years ago, and I wasn't happy with that one. I have it, but it was an interesting story and different take, but not my cup of tea. But also X-Men. X-Men is my love, as well as Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and the Hulk. But the the fact that they could change a few things within the cinematic universe. Now, whether or not they change the actors or not, who knows? I don't mind McAvoy. I don't mind. I love Patrick Stewart. Come on, Ian McKellen and all that stuff. I loved all those characters and those actors. It was the stories that I had sometimes had an issue with, but Days of Future Past was probably the best out of all of them that I liked. And the first one because it was the very first. The second one I actually really liked in a sense because you had Nightcrawler on it, and there was like a little bit of a history on that. And there's a whole bunch of them that are there's so much you could do with this whole genre. It's like okay, do they replace the actors or do they do that? I really would like to know. If you guys want to answer that on Panels to Pixels, that'd be awesome. I could throw that up there if you guys want to talk about it. But that's my little bit of news. Steve, do you have any news?
Not really as far as comics are related. It's been so long since I've followed any sort of comics that I would love to see. There was a comic, you and I talked about it earlier, that it was an Image comic, I believe, and it was called John Sable Freelance. It was written and pinked and penciled by Mike Grell, and it was an awesome run. They tried to make it into a TV series and botched it. I would love to see that character somehow brought into the current day. He's kind of like a Punisher type of character, except he's different. So really, I can't think of anything. I loved the first Fantastic Four movies. I loved both of them, but I never even watched the reboot a few years ago when it came out, the one you were talking about. I never even saw that one. I heard it tanked so bad that I wasn't even interested.
The Josh Trank version you're talking about, right?
Yes, the most recent one.
Yeah, I gave it credit for the fact that they tried to do something different. That was the only difference that I had for it. But it was trying to make it a little bit more realistic with the characters and the drama.
Oh, okay.
But, I give it its, due best. I just, in my opinion, I'd rather have the original Roger Corman version that had...
oh, wow.
Yeah, that they were publicizing back in the 60s. Not that I was born at that time, but the fact that they actually had one. And you had the professor from Gilligan's Island, and you got the woman from Bewitched in there as Susan Storm. They actually were doing promotion for that, and I'm sure a lot of you out there know that or big comic book geeks like me. It's out there, trust me. It's like I see posters, I see all this. It was supposed to be into play, but it never happened. But I love the idea. Like, the first Fantastic Four movie was a good idea, but oh my god, that Thing version, I don't know. I like the actor, but
Michael Chiklis, yeah,
he's a great actor in The Shield and all that. But it's like you got Chris Evans as the Torch.
yeah. I liked them. They were fun. They were fun movies. But I am excited to see them bring this MCU together with other Marvel characters. It's going to be interesting to see how they do it with movies because, of course, with comic books, it just got out of hand.
Yeah.
With comic books in the 80s, especially, and that's why both Marvel and DC, and I think the DC TV shows just recently had a Crisis kind of storyline that involved multiple timelines, and I followed a little bit of it when they did it in the 80s. Wasn't it Crisis on Infinite Worlds? And Marvel did one similar to where they were just trying to destroy all their other timelines that were out there and get it down to just 2 or 3 because you had Spider-Man married to Mary Jane in one, and then you had him married to the other girl in another timeline. you had different timelines of Batmans and Robins, and they so it's gonna be interesting to see how the movies bring these together. And I think is it Kevin Feige?
Kevin Feige is actually in charge of Disney Marvel. And He's got
he
a
supposedly
good line.
does a really good job. Well, he supposedly has somebody, it's either him or he has somebody who's specifically employed to try to keep the continuity
Together.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's awesome. I love the fact that Marvel is coming a long way when it comes to movies. I just don't like the idea that Marvel can't come a long way with TV.
Yeah.
I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I can't get really much into it, kind of like the Inhumans. I watched the first 4 episodes of Inhumans, and I kind of fell asleep with it. I'm sorry. I'm like, it's like, you gotta entice me more. The dog is great. I love Lockjaw.
Yeah.
But, it's like, you got, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't watch either.
To me.
Yeah, I Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just, I didn't even get a chance to start it. And now it's so far along. And I actually watched, I saw a recent article that had a timeline of all the movies and TV shows, trying to put all the different TV show seasons and movies all together. And it did pretty good, but you had like halfway seasons going, well, this season takes place between Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3, and this takes place, Ant-Man is here, and they were trying to put the TV shows and the movies together, and it was this huge list. I was like, there's no way anybody could one person could keep track of that.
Exactly.
You got, and I love the Captain America movies. So I like the individual, what do you call them? The individual movie series. Like, I love Guardians. I think Guardians of the Galaxy is probably the best of them, in my opinion. And part of the reason is because, for the most part, it's completely separate from the rest of the stuff. You can have anything go on with Thor, and you don't have to worry about it in Guardians. And I guess they are going to be in Infinity War, so we'll see how that works out. But I'm excited to see what they do with X-Men, bringing the X-Men into it, and if they can bring Fantastic Four in. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, what you were talking about before, Ben Beck actually talked about Crisis on Supergirl and Arrow and, and what was it, Flash? And
yeah, I think it's Flash,
tomorrow.
Arrow, right.
And he did that on DC Primetime, which is on our podcast network. So, keep in mind, listen to that. I think Ben did a great job. They talked about it thoroughly, and I do agree with it. I love that. You'll probably be mad at me saying this, but I almost spoiled it for him once online that night, and I was like upset about it myself, and I was like, "Oh darn, I did not say that." But,
I'll have to listen to it. It may convince me to try to watch, to try to get back. I tried to watch Arrow and just couldn't get through it, and just Flash didn't hold my interest, and I never even started Supergirl, so I don't know.
I gave Supergirl a shot. I heard about the Flash, and the way I heard about it was through Kevin Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept raving it on in his podcast, and I had to listen. And I was like, all right, I'll listen to it. I was like, all right, let me take a look into it. And it was on a night, obviously, kind of like now, because this is the mid-season for a lot of shows, and you and I both love The Walking Dead.
Absolutely.
And we kind of listen to another podcast that we are Patreons to, which is for Karen and Jason's Walking Dead Cast Patreon page, and that's how we know each other. And it's that had a big turmoil on it itself, which we're going to talk about soon.
Yeah.
But there's so much going on.
Yeah, the other big news that you and I talked about that's not really comic book related, but it's Punisher related, is the fact that I guess it was earlier this week they released that season 2 of the Punisher has been approved or confirmed. So I don't know when they're going to start filming that, but I'm excited to finish the series here in the next few days or weeks. I've got to travel next week, so I may not be able to watch all the rest of the Punisher series, but I'm going to try to see if I can pick it up maybe this weekend if I can binge watch it. But I tried to keep myself fresh for this third season, this third episode podcast, and not as you saw, that I forgot about things that went on in the first two episodes because I focused so much on the third episode. But now I'm excited. I want to watch the rest of the season because I've heard good things about the rest of the season, and then now there's going to be a season 2, which we'll probably have to wait till 2019 for. But
well, we have more things to look forward to. We got Jessica Jones coming out, so
absolutely.
So that there are other things in the works. Whether this whole Disney app thing going through and their contract with Netflix, we don't know. But,
yeah.
The fact that they bought out Fox now and they're trying to do their own app, it's amazing. And like I was saying before, it's like the way I got into Flash, and Flash is very cool.
Okay.
So it was in the mid-season, and that's how I got into it. Just like when I was talking about the Walking Dead cast, and that was just to give props to Jason and Karen, because go listen to their podcast. Jason is the great optimist on that show, and he's got great insight on it. Karen is always
Absolutely
fun to listen to. But within the time that The Walking Dead was off the air, I had nothing to watch. I'd come home from work, and what is on? I just turn on the TV as I'm doing paperwork or something. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, The Flash is on. I'm like, oh, let me watch this. I started getting into it. I'm like, hold on. I got to watch the last part of the season. I got in half season in. And then I was like, oh. And I started watching, and I started getting into it. I want to see the next season. So it made me interested in it because, honestly, as a kid, I was never into DC Comics. I'm sure Ben is hating me on this, but I was never a DC fan.
I never was because there was just too much. There was too much to keep track of with DC. I tried. I loved Batman. I loved the character of Batman and everything about that character. But there was like 5 or 6 comic books at one time that were Batman related, and I was just
Now there's 5 or different types of comic books of X-Men or X-Factor or this or that now in Marvel. But you have to pick and choose your favorites at this point.
Exactly.
But, so I started watching that, and that got me into it. So Supergirl was coming up that same year, or at the end of the year, or something like that. And I watched the premiere, and I was like, wow, I want to watch this. I'm going to continue watching this, because I was a big fan of Lois and Clark back in the day in the 90s.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, Legends of Tomorrow. I'm like, oh, my God, Brandon Routh's in this. Awesome. Because he plays, a major character in that, the anime.
Okay.
And, it's like, Firestorm, and I was like, oh my God, they're pulling all these different characters. It's like, I was never really into them in a comic book form, but I started getting into it in the idea of watching shows. And it just kind of brought me back to the days of when I was a little kid, and you had the Incredible Hulk, and then you had Wonder Woman on the same night,
Yeah. You had Lou Ferrigno and Linda Carter.
Yeah, well, it can be better. It's like you got the one big guy that you always wanted to be, and then you want the great, beautiful woman you wanted to be with, even though you were a little kid.
Exactly. I remember those days.
I still remember those days. I just look back at that, and I was like,
yeah.
But the thing is that, it's like I started to appreciate DC a little bit more. I did read Watchmen back in the day. I bought them when they first came out. I have like 3 copies of the first 3 issues, and then all the rest single, and they're all boarded and bagged, like a typical nerd that I am.
Yeah, I wish I had bought the comics when they came out. I do have one of the first printings of the, or is it a reprinting? It might be a reprinting that I bought of the graphic novel when they bound it all together. So I have one of those, but I think it was a reprinting of it, not the only thing I have bagged and boarded that I know that I can remember, and I'd have to go back and find it from the 80s, is I have a first printing of The Dark Knight Returns series.
I have that too. I have them. I have 2 of issue 1 and 2.
Okay.
And they're boarded and bagged, and I have those, but they a year ago they came out with a Blu-ray.
I know. I watched the first one.
Yeah, and it has the whole series on it on this thing, because it came in a big book where I work at. I'm not going to say BB, but I work at a company that does home theater and stuff like that. And I wound up buying that, and I was like, wow, this is the one I'm going to read, and this is the one I'm going to actually. And they had the Death of Superman too.
Okay.
And and with the Blu-ray and that from that version as well. And to me, quite honest, those were like the ones I sought after, as well as the Killing Joke comic and the actual cartoon that came out.
Do you think they missed out on maybe they'll still do it, but it's maybe too late now. They really should have had that narration that's in the comic book that they didn't put on the Blu-ray. I really wish they had that on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to Kevin Smith podcast about it, and he expected that they would come out with a version with a narration, is what he speculated.
Yeah,
but I guess they never have.
They never did. I wish they did, but we want everything to be tried and true to what we read as kids, or when we were getting those comics at that time. But sometimes you have to go into whatever is given to us, whether it be on a film format. A lot of us didn't expect a Captain America back in the 70s and the 80s with a clear see-through shield that went on his motorcycle with
on his motorcycle,
blue.
yeah.
There are certain things that you got to overlook.
Yeah, that's one. And now that you bring that up, that Dark Knight Returns. Now, obviously, they would have to name it something else because of the Christian Bale movie.
Mm.
But that would be an interesting movie series to do, at least one movie, maybe two movies over that whole miniseries of this the idea of the aging Batman and the aging Superman, that have to do battle with each other.
That could be an alternate movie,
I guess
itself.
I guess they did have aspects of it in Batman versus Superman, now that I think about that, because he wore that suit in Batman versus Superman, didn't he? That was very similar to the one he wore in Dark Knight Returns.
They were just trying to take snippets, I think, of key moments in comic book lore and put them in there. Kind of like the Death of Superman in that movie, and kind of like that whole that takedown in the Dark Knight actual comic.
Broke his back.
Yeah, and all that good stuff. They could always do, far right. It's like, look at what Jeffrey D. Morgan said when I went to Walker Stalker, New York, New Jersey recently, and he kind of alluded that, oh, well, I'm talking about this thing that's coming up, and everybody knows that they're talking about Flashpoint. And in Flashpoint,
that's the alternate reality one where Thomas
Allen.
Wayne became Batman, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so Barry Allen goes back in time and finds out an alternate world where Thomas Wayne is Batman, and he's kind of like the vicious Batman that you're, really a vigilante with guns and everything else.
Yeah.
And
how, in fact, I was talking to somebody at work today about how weird that was to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan playing Thomas and Martha Wayne in Batman versus Superman, and then to them in Walking Dead, and you go, wait a minute, it's very different.
It is very different. You know what? You got to suspend your disbelief at certain times with certain things.
You just got to remember these people are actors, and they have those their jobs. Is that they do different things, and just like they were talking in one of the Facebook threads today, they were talking about the different things that Jeffrey Dean Morgan has been in. I watched him in Grey's Anatomy when I used to watch Grey's Anatomy, and that's a show where I stopped watching when they killed a major character. But he was in Supernatural. I love the TV show Supernatural. I've been a fan of that since the beginning. He played the father in that series.
Yeah.
And then he was in The Good Wife, which I never watched The Good Wife, and of course he was in Watchmen as the comedian. So you have all these different aspects of him as an actor. But that's a show that if you haven't checked it out, you need to check out Supernatural. It's if you liked the X-Files, I think you'd like Supernatural. So
that's what I was told. Actually, I was fixing somebody's TV for a job, and the girl was completely into Supernatural, and I said to her, I said, "Oh, you're Supernatural." She goes, "Yeah, I'll go to the cons and this and that and the other." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." I said, "You're like me." And she goes, "What do you mean?" "I go to Walking Dead convention." She goes, "Oh my God."
Yeah, but the very beginning of Supernatural, and it's not as much now, but the very beginning of Supernatural, the same guys that did X-Files were involved in the beginning of Supernatural. Eric Kripke and a couple of the other producers and directors and writers were involved in Supernatural at the very beginning, and they even have several actors from the X-Files that are in Supernatural at different times. So it's
Like the
I love
gunman?
it. Kind of like that, yeah. Yeah, they had Mitch Pileggi played the maternal grandfather of the main characters in Supernatural. He plays Skinner on X-Files. The cigarette smoking man had a cameo in a couple of episodes. I'm trying to think who else. There's been 2 or 3 actors from there, and then there's a lot of writers and directors and producers from X-Files that are also involved with Supernatural.
Wow. I was told to check it out. There's so much TV.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's hard for us to all like pay attention.
Exactly. You got to pick what you're gonna spend your time on.
Yeah, so which kind of leads us to we like I said we are both Walking Dead fans, and then the big stray away this week and the biggest news this week is the deviation from the actual comic book itself from The Walking Dead onto the TV show. So we kind of lost Carl.
Ooh, that's a blow too.
It's a blow, and it's like, oh my God, it's like spoiler in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Carl got bit. So in the mid-season finale, at the very end, he kind of shows his dad. Rick's crying, and they're in the sewer, and he got bit. But needless to say, Carl saved Alexandria and saved a lot of people.
Absolutely.
From the Saviors. But in a comic book now, if you look at it, Carl is a huge character. And he is actually rebuilding, taking care of, doing all these things. And Rick is the one that's ailing and falling apart.
And so I kind of had a thought on that as I've heard people say that a lot about that Carl is so involved in later issues of the comic in moving the story forward. Correct. And I wonder if they're going to have, and I don't know what the specific instances are, but if it's a leadership kind of position, I wonder if that's going to be, if they're going to somehow be able to morph Daryl into taking that on that position. And then maybe some of the other minor subplots that Carl is involved in, Enid might take is what I'm wondering. I haven't read the comics. I have the first compendium somewhere in my apartment, and I read about up to the governor in his interaction with Michonne, and just past that before I haven't picked it back up since. So it kind of makes me wonder, and I got literally have a coworker who watches The Walking Dead, but he doesn't have cable, so he has to watch it online the next day. And he texted me Monday afternoon after he finished it. He was like, "No, Carl can't die." And I'm like, "I know," but Scott Gimple, he confirmed it on Talking Dead. One of the very first things he says on Talking Dead when they brought it up is he said, it's gonna work the process of the way we've seen Bites work their process. So I think that's obvious that he's got to go. Yeah. There's not going to be, you can't, where that bite is, you can't necessarily cut it
away.
Which that was another one of those things that I never really understood what the point of that was. I understand that it worked for Herschel, but it didn't work for Herschel because they cut his leg off. It worked for Herschel because they were able to keep him alive. Or I guess there is another virus, because remember, everybody has the virus. Everybody has the.
Well, think about it. The virus works this way, and this is my theory. Is where you get bit, it starts to attack wherever it is and spreads out. So if it's on a arm by like your wrist, if you lop off by the elbow, it's not gonna. If you get it chop off by the elbow at that time, it's not gonna spread up the.
And as long as you can keep the person alive,
exactly,
and not let them die from blood loss, like that was the one thing about Herschel was they had to cut off his leg and then keep him from dying from blood loss. You know,
yes.
And so I guess there's something about the bite that accelerates the putrefaction, or I guess
kind of like a venom almost, where it's like it's built into your body chemistry, but it's activated at that point, but it doesn't go. It starts at the bite format and then it goes up.
Sure, and depending on where the bite is, it could be. So I can see that. Like Bob was bitten in the shoulder.
Yes.
And so Carl's bitten, on his torso somewhere.
And that one guy in the prison was bitten on the neck, and then and then Carol was just like, "Oh no, I can't."
Right.
Because they can't. Well, I'm gonna chop your head off.
Right, exactly.
So, but that was my feeling about that, because it all lends back to the original comic book series when Rick actually had to take off his arm, his hand or whatever.
Well, I thought his hand was chopped off by the governor in the comic book.
I don't remember.
Okay,
it's been a long time, and I just it's like Jamie Dimmock is the one that's the guru of the comics apparently.
Okay.
I from what I remember. Usually it's an appendage that can be cut off where it can stop before it spreads anywhere else. So if you got on a hand, foot, leg, or whatever, you could chop it off and it won't go anywhere else. So they've done that before. I think they also actually did that to Dale at one point, too. Until Dale got his other leg bit, and then, Terminus people wound up eating him.
Okay. So the fact that they're killing off Carl makes it definitely, and I like what you said earlier. I was talking to somebody earlier. I've had so many conversations over the last few days that this understanding that they're finally, I guess it was on Walking Dead cast actually with Jason and Karen, that they made it the fact, they pointed out the fact that some people are excited with the show now because now they can split off from the comic book narrative. And even though they may still pull some things in, there's so much that they can't pull in directly from the comic that it's no longer a spoiler for somebody to tell you, oh, well, this happened in the comic.
Exactly.
Well, that you can't have that now because it's deviated so far from the source material that it's going to be different. So I like that. I'm excited about that we're not going to have to worry about people saying, oh, this is a comic book spoiler. I
actually tweeted Mr. Gimple the other day about that too. So are we walking away from the source material, sir? I never got a response, but obviously this is Scott M. Gimple.
Right.
And the same thing from Mr. Robert Kirkman himself, who ignores me probably because he's like, oh, great, another Kirkman heretic. Regardless, my feeling is it's like it is beneficial in a sense that the show can go a different direction. Plus, I brought this up on Walker Stalker podcast when Jason was on, and I was trying to get to the point of if, we've already seen certain things that they're doing writing-wise. They already stayed strict to the actual comic in some sense up until the point of Glenn's death. And that really hurt viewership. People are like, I don't want to watch the show. The typical gif of like, screw this. And they throw out the papers.
Okay.
And the viewership has gone down as you know that Brian had mentioned probably with you when you were on with him. It has gone down. Brian Malash's Walking Dead talk through. And when I was on there wasn't as many down because we were only episode 5 at the time when I did it. But it's been going down, and they're trying to change that. So think about that. They're doing this crossover, and everybody's thinking that Morgan's going to die at the end of the season. I don't think he's going to die. I think he's going to wind up getting into an argument with Rick, and then he's going to wind up saying, I'm going to go walk, and he's going to be like Kane from Kung Fu and walk down to Texas.
That's kind of what we talked about is we kind of saw the same thing when I was on Brian's podcast, because the timeline doesn't really work out for a past version of Morgan to be in Texas and still get back to Virginia.
Exactly.
In the time frame that he had, it just doesn't work out. It wouldn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense, for that to happen. So the most obvious thing to me, and I agree with Brian on this, is that they're going to sync up the two shows. The two shows are going to become synced up, at least, or pretty close to being synced up in their timelines when if Walking Dead does this time jump. And some of us were hoping they would do the time jump at the mid-season finale or the mid-season premiere. Now it looks more like what we're going to see is that time jump is going to happen at the end of the season. And so then when the Fear season starts, Morgan will be there in wherever Fear is not filmed, but wherever Fear is going to be based.
Yeah.
He'll be there, and it'll be the up to the moment whenever that is. If it's 6 months after he leaves, for whatever reason he leaves the Prime series. And now, as there was an article a couple weeks ago about how the fact that they're turning when they originally talked about Fear, they said it wasn't going to be a spinoff, that it was going to be its own show with no context to the other show, to the Prime show. It looks like they're morphing it into an actual spinoff where it actually will be. So it'll be interesting to see what that reason is. And one of the things that we proposed on, I don't remember who it was who brought it up first, was that maybe there's some sort of communication link that occurs between a group that's in the Fear world with the Prime world, and that's what brings Morgan. They say, we're going to send Morgan to go look for this whatever. Like they hear a radio broadcast from wherever Fear is going to be based, whether they base it Austin, Houston, or some other Texas town or Mexico town or whatever, and they're going to send Morgan to go check it out. They still going to have to figure out a way. They're going to have to write it well. Let me speak that way. They're going to need to write it well to get him to figure out to leave.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I brought that up to Brian a long time ago, and he goes, you've been the advocate for this for a while. I'm like, yeah, because it doesn't add up. Because if you look at the whole thing when he met the cheesemaker and when Rick went back to the town and he saw Morgan there, and it looked like Morgan hadn't left for a long, long time.
Right.
And he lost his son, and it was within the town. She crept on him. His wife crept on his son and ate him and all that. So I don't see it happening. It's got to be something where at the end of the season, in season 8 of Walking Dead, they do a time jump, and the way they left off Fear the Walking Dead looked like it could go to its own time jump.
Right.
So that they both collide at the same time, or like maybe when Fear comes out, and it comes out in August, I think.
Right.
It might be ahead of Walking Dead, meaning that Morgan would have to leave at the very end of this season to jump on to the next season of Fear.
Right. And the thing is, the time jump doesn't have to be that big of a jump. Like, I guess I don't read the comics. So wasn't the comic time jump was several years?
It was 3 years.
It was only 3 years. Okay, it was only 3 years. So yeah, so that would make more sense, because if I saw a timeline just a week or so ago that said where we're at right now in season 8 is about less than 3 years into the zombie apocalypse. Okay.
Yes.
If we take 0 hour as when Fear starts, okay, Fear starts about 6 months or so before the Prime show. If it didn't spread that fast, like I guess the guy in the CDC says it spread pretty fast. So depending on how long Rick was in a coma, there really might only be about 6 months or so to a year difference between the Fear timeline and the Prime timeline. You know, because I don't know how far Fear is in the timeline. Are they a year in, or are they not quite a year in? I haven't watched it, so.
My feeling is I'm thinking it's about a year and a half in.
Right.
Meaning that it would have to be a significant time jump.
For them, right.
For them.
If they do a 3 year, especially if they do a 3 year jump but if they only do like a 6 month jump or an 8 or a year jump for the Prime show, you see what I'm saying? Especially if Chandler dies, okay, if Chandler's character is taken out, Carl's character is taken out, now we can jump it a year, and you only have to find another actress really for Judith. And they've been having different actresses for Judith all along anyway.
Exactly.
So, you know, Chandler, this is what I said on Brian's podcast, was really Chandler Riggs is, as an actor, was the only one who really gave us any kind of a gauge
of age.
Right. And they were so vague at it because he aged, 8 years
exponentially.
You know, in a 3 year time period. So
kids do grow. The thing is like, but he started at 10. Technically, he's supposed to be about 14 at this point.
Right.
What kid does a great growth spurt within those 4 years? Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Panels to Pixels. We really appreciate it. If you have any feedback that you would like to give us, feel free to go back onto our Facebook page, comment, give any information that you would like for us to actually podcast about, or any information of comics that you like to do, any letters, anything that you would like to talk about. We are currently looking for other people to talk on this podcast, so just comment or email us at panels2pixels1@gmail.com. I will reply and both comment and email, and we could communicate that way. All I ask is you guys keep listening and keep reading those comics and watching those shows that we all love. Until then, I'll see you guys at a later time.